Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I've got some fun DIYs to share with you using fall socks. So if you want to know how to make them, stick around. I'll show you how. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Right, Maxwell? Okay, for this one, I'm going to take just a furry sock and I'm just going to cut the toe part off of it and the heel part off of it. So you're going to have two pieces and we're going to make some pumpkins with these. And you're going to start by taking your first one, the one that has the toe in it, and you're going to use some embroidery floss and you're going to use the full strand of this. And you're going to use about 60 inches on this. Next, I'm using an upholstery needle. I'm just going to thread my thread through here, and then I'm just going to sew a casing up along the top edge. Now, you don't have to have a needle this long, but you do need one that is longer than just a regular needle. So at least I would say maybe a 3-inch needle. I got these on Amazon, and I'll give you the link for these. So just keep going until you get back to the beginning. And this doesn't have to be perfect because we are gathering this. Next, you're going to take some polyfill and we are going to stuff this. And we are going to stuff this very full. You want to make sure that you can kind of get it as full as it can go. And then just continue to stuff it until you can't stuff it anymore. And you'll know because you won't be able to gather it up. So just keep going until you have it completely stuffed. And kind of make sure that you are keeping it round. You know, make sure that you are sticking some on both sides and just really trying to make this as round as you can make it. And then you're just going to kind of squeeze it around there because you want to make sure that it is perfectly round. Just spend a little bit of time on this part because you want to make sure that you do have a nice round piece. And you can stick your needle inside of there to kind of push it out to make it a little bit better. And then once you get there, go ahead and gather it up. And then push the top part down inside, pull it tight, and tie that off. And tie it tight. And then you're just going to cut the one side thread off, but keep the other side on. And then kind of knead it till it is completely round. And this really does help it get round when you're doing that. To start making our pumpkin, we're going to go tightly around to the back, come through the bottom, and back up through the top, and pull it snug. That's going to be your first little section on your pumpkin. Then do the second one, go around to the other side, pull it tight, and go back through the center of the pumpkin as well. And then the main thing you need to keep doing is pulling your thread tight. And then go down to the other side, go back through the bottom, come up through the top, and then do the same thing on the opposite side. So now we've divided this into 4 sections. And then you're going to come back through and you're going to go through the center of the next 2 sections, run your needle through to the top, and then you're going to pull it across the next section and do the same thing. And then you got 2 more sections and then you're going to be done. So we're dissecting this into 8 sections. And this is really a good way to do this because your thread will always stay tight and you won't have any of it moving. Wherever you're sewing it to right here, it's going to stay. And then once you get to this part, you're going to run it through, and then we're going to run a thread through the center part and tie this off. And to finish it off, I'm just going to use a smaller needle. I'm using a needle threader to run this through because this was so thick. And then you're just going to do a little stitch right through the center here, pull it tight, and then you're just going to tie that into a knot once you get it done. Just take those 2 threads and tie them together a couple of times. And then just cut off the excess thread. For the stem, I'm going to take a cork and I'm going to cut it till it's about 1 inch tall. And then I'm going to take some jute twine. I'm going to glue it down at the bottom of my cork and I'm going to start wrapping my cork all the way around. And I'm going to glue it intermittently as I go around. Just kind of get it right at the bottom because you want it to cover it up completely. And then we're going to go all the way to the top and I'll show you how we're going to finish it off at the top. But just make sure you do get it completely covered because you don't want any of the cork showing. And you can just spot glue in sections. You don't have to glue every single piece of that jute in. Just kind of spot glue it as you're going along. And just keep it tight so that it does cover up the cork completely. Okay, then once you get to the very top, you're going to go ahead and put glue into the center, and you're just going to start going all the way into the center with this. So you're just going to kind of just spiral this into the center, and then it'll cover the top up completely. And if you have a thicker jute, you could use that just as well. This was a little bit thin, so it did take a few times to go around it and a few times to go into the center. But if you have a thicker jute, you could use that also. But just get the top of that cork completely covered up. Finish this out, we're just going to attach our stem right to the center of our pumpkin with some hot glue. Just push that on down in there and hold it until it dries. All right, look how cute that is. For the other half of your sock, you're going to do it the same way. We're going to go ahead and sew a casing up on the raw edge of the sock. And then we're going to draw it up, and then we're going to use the smooth edge of the sock for the top part of our pumpkin. So just draw that up and then just tie that off, and then we're going to do the top part of the pumpkin the same way we did the other pumpkin. And that way you're able to get 2 pumpkins out of 1 sock. This next one, I'm using some of the Dollar Tree balloons. These are just the small skinny balloons, and I'm going to blow it up to the shape of an egg. And we're going to be making an acorn with these. So I'm going to take some craft paper and I'm going to wad it up real tight. I'm going to break down the fibers of the paper. And this way it'll really be easy to work with once you do this. So get it really, really wrinkled. So I'm taking some matte Mod Podge. I'm just going to pour it out onto my counter here. And then I'm going to take my paper strips and just start tearing them into small strips. You need a lot of these, but just want to make them into small strips. And then you're going to just tear those into smaller pieces. And then we're going to start gluing these to our balloon until we have it completely covered. And you do want to overlap the edges of the pieces so that it does cover it completely and it gives a little bit more strength. And if you do it this way where you get a lot of them going first with the glue, it makes it go a lot faster. And this really didn't take that long to do. Now, if you have any of the big, large eggs left over from Easter, you could skip this part and just use one of those for this project. But I didn't have any, and so I had to improvise. And then you're going to continue to go until you have your balloon completely covered. You want to cover it completely. And then when you get down to the end, cut that little tip off and then complete the rest of it with the rest of the paper. Set that aside and let that completely dry. That's dry, we're just going to take an X-Acto knife and we are going to cut 2 slits into the bottom of this. And this will pop your balloon at the same time. But you want to get it opened up to where you can pull those flaps back because we are going to fill this with some polyfill. And you want to remove the balloon once you get this peeled back. But be careful with it because you don't want to tear up the shape. So we're going to start filling this with polyfill and we're going to fill it up completely so it is real solid. And once you get it completely full, where it's all sitting right at the top part, we're going to just take some tape. You can take any kind of tape you want to and just close that up. Just make sure that your tape lays on there pretty smooth. You do want to keep the same shape that you started with. Okay, next I'm going to take my sock. With the toe end, I'm going to put it on the small end of my acorn. So the toe part goes on the small end, and you're going to pull it as snug as you can because you want the opposite end of that sock to make the other acorn. So just make sure that your toe is right down at the very bottom. Pull that up and then just cut that off. And you're just going to put glue around there and snug that up. Just kind of pull it up as close as you can. Just make sure that it is flat. And don't worry if you have an opening there because we are going to cover all this up. Just get it glued in good where it is flat. For our other acorn, we're going to pull our sock up over the top of this with the smooth side at the very smallest part of the acorn. And then we're just going to take some needle and thread and we're going to sew that up. But make sure that the finished end of the sock is at the smallest part of your acorn. And I'm just using some embroidery floss. It's about the same color as my sock. You can use whatever you want to, but that's what I'm using. Okay, then once you get it stitched together, we are going to put a little bit of glue into the bottom to hold this together. And then we're just going to tie that up real tight and then cut off the excess thread. Just make sure that you cover it completely where you don't see any of the balloon underneath it. And then you're going to finish out the opposite end exactly like you did the last one. Okay, next I'm going to start just a little bit above halfway point on this, and I'm going to start adding this jute. Now this is a 5mm jute rope. I'm just going to start right there, get a center point on it, and then I'm going to start wrapping this. And you want to try to make it as straight as you can. So just get your first line pretty straight, and then you can get the rest of it pretty straight after that. Just kind of go all the way around there, hold it in place, and then just glue it together. And I know it looks a little bit hard to get a line right there, but you can do this. Okay, next you're going to meet right in the middle, and you're going to just overlap it, and you're just going to continue to go until you have this completely filled in. Just kind of take your time on this part, and then when we get around the circle here, just a second, we're going to go below the line as well, just to kind of mix it up a little bit, to kind of even it out. But just kind of squeeze it together as you're going around. Just make sure that you are getting plenty of glue on there to hold this in place so you don't have any gaps. And then once you get to that line, we are going to go through the center of the line to kind of beef up this line a little bit to give a little bit more separation on this acorn. So you're just going to come right up to there, and then you're going to go between the middle of those two lines to kind of give it a little bit of a lip out there. Okay, then once you get back to this point, you're just going to come back over the top part there. Just push it up against that other bottom piece, come over the top, and then you're just going to lay it right on top of that rope that you just did. And then we're going to go all the way around, and we're just going to continue to go and build upward. Just kind of take your time on this part. You want to make sure that your glue does hold together good. And then I'm just going to go really fast right here so you can kind of see what I'm doing, but not just sit there and watch me go round and round in circles. You're just going to go all the way to the top till you have the very top completely covered up. And if you don't have a thick rope like this, you can use a thicker yarn or even a macrame yarn. Either one would work just fine. Get to this point, we're just going to kind of spiral it in until we don't have any more of that top of that acorn showing. Then when you get to this point, just go ahead and cut your rope off and just spin that all the way in till it's completely covered. And then when you get it to this point, just really glue that in, push that on in so that it doesn't come out. You want to make sure that it is one solid piece on top. Okay, next I'm going to take a little burnt umber paint and a chip brush, and I'm going to distress the top part of this acorn. This just gives it a little bit more color and a little bit more depth, and it gives it a little bit more realistic look. And I'm going to do both of my acorns exactly the same way. And you could add as much or as little distress as you want. And if you don't get into the distress at all, skip this part completely. And to add a little bit of contrast on the body of the acorn, I'm going to take that same paint and I'm going to brush just the tip of the bottom. And next for my acorn stem, I'm just going to cut two pieces that are about 1 inch long. And I'm going to distress these as well. And then I'm going to glue these right to the very top of my acorns. To attach them, I'm just going to take a dowel stick. I'm going to poke a hole down in here. And then I'm just going to glue that right down in here. And I'm going to do the other one exactly the same way. And that was pretty much it. I think these turned out super cute. Let me know what you think in the comments. So I'm going to take a 4.7-inch styrofoam ball, and I'm going to take a foam cutting tool, and I'm just going to cut this straight in half. Now this works really good on foam because it cuts it just like butter. Next, I'm going to take a pair of socks and I'm just going to cut this right below the heel straight across on both of them. And I'm going to use these to contrast with each one of them. Then I'm going to cut the heel section off on both of them as well. And then we're just going to use the top and the bottom of these two socks. Next, I'm going to take a paper tube that measures almost 4 inches by about 1.6 inches. And also use a paper towel roll if you want to do that instead, but you will need to put some filling in it. So we're going to pull the top part of our sock over our tube, come down to the bottom, and then we're going to glue this in. You want to glue it in where it just sets flush with the table so that it will stand up. So just make sure you don't have a lot of overhang, and then flip it over, put some glue on the inside, and then just go ahead and tuck the rest of that fabric on down in there. Next, you're going to take your half styrofoam ball and we're going to put the toe part of the sock over this. Now, this will stretch pretty easily. It is going to stick to your styrofoam a little bit, so you can kind of pull it around there. You're going to have to lift it off of it a little bit to get it all the way around, but you want to get it all the way around where you have excess fabric in the center. So really spend some time pulling and stretching this as far as you can because you want most of the fabric down in the center. Get all that stretch, we're going to take the bottom part and we're going to glue this in, and that's going to be the end that has the raw edge on it is going to go against the styrofoam. So just put plenty of glue on there and make sure you do get it centered right in the center. Next, you're going to take your fabric and you're going to fold it over about 1/4 inch all the way around so we have a nice finished edge on the white part. Just about 1/4 inch is all you need, but just go all the way around so that you do have a nice finished edge all the way around. Okay, next we're going to take some embroidery floss and I'm going to thread it, and I am using a needle threader to do this because I am using the full strand of the embroidery floss. And you're just going to start right up against the bottom part of the styrofoam ball, so right at the base of the styrofoam ball, and we're going to pull this all the way around and then we're going to tie this shut. Just kind of get as close to the base as you can, so you probably still have about maybe a 1/2 inch of the fabric on the top part. And then when you get to the opposite side, we're just going to pull this real tight and tie it into a knot. This will draw this in around that tube so it does stay together really well. Just tie it super tight and then tie that in a knot and then cut your string off. So we're just going to take a bead of glue and go all the way around the top edge just to hold this in place. Kind of pull it so that it is even all the way around. Next, I'm taking the Tim Holtz Distressing Ink and I'm going to put some of the Distressing Ink color all the way around the bottom. Now, I made several of these little mushrooms in some different contrasting colors. This is the opposite of the one we just made. And you're just kind of filling it in around the bottom to give it like a little bit of the color like it's been setting in the grass. And then just use a paintbrush to do this, and this is a water-based stain, so you can just wash your paintbrush out when you're finished. Next, I'm going to use some of the preserved Spanish moss, and I'm just going to glue this right to the base. You'll still be able to see the color that you just painted on there, but just kind of get towards the bottom of this. And we're going to go all the way around, just adding a little bit just to the bottom, and we're going to do that to all the ones we did. This is another one of the contrasting ones I did that with the brown and the white. And if you get this pack of socks, you have quite a good variety of different colors. And you don't want too much of this on here, just enough to cover the bottom area. Next, to dress up the top a little bit, I'm just using some white puff paint, and I'm just going to put some little dots all the way around here. And then on my white one, I didn't have any of the brown dots for the puff paint, but I am using the Slicks, the same brand of Slicks, and it worked just fine too. And this is how the Slicks looks. It looks pretty much similar to the puff paint. And then for the tan colored one, I'm going to put white on it as well. And that was pretty much it. These turned out so cute. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, for this last one, we're not going to use a sock. I'm just using a white pumpkin. I got it at Michael's, and I'm going to spray paint it with a rustic orange spray paint. Next, I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to draw a face on here. I'm making a deer. Now, you're not really going to see really good with the pencil, but I would always recommend drawing your face out first with a pencil, and then when you can go back in with your paint. But I'm putting some big eyes and a big nose, and then I'm going to come in and fill all this in with white paint. Now, this did take several coats to get this completely covered up. And then I'm going to kind of go fast on this so you can see what I'm doing, but not just sit here and watch me paint. So this is going to go pretty quickly. I've got two big eyes, and then I've got a nose that's going to be kind of like an oval shape. Next, I got that filled in. I'm just going to take some white acrylic paint and the tip of my paintbrush, and I'm just going to put some dots all along the top part of the head. We're making a deer. And using the end of your paintbrush really works good to get a complete round circle. But I'm adding quite a few of these. Next, I'm going to take some brown paint and I'm going to paint the top part of the stem because I did spray paint the entire thing. You are going to have to go back in there and put your brown back on the stem. And I'm just using a burnt umber acrylic paint to do this. Next, I'm coming in with some black acrylic paint to add the eyes. Now, we're just going to kind of go around leaving the outside edge of the white showing and just go into the center and do the same similar shape, but just color it in black. The nose, I'm just coming in and doing like a little upside down triangle. Next, I'm just doing a line right down the center of his nose, and I'll do a mouth here in a minute. And then I'm just taking a small paintbrush. I'm going to do 2 circles that match on both sides for the eyes. Have them both going in the same direction. And then to finish out his mouth, I'm just going to come in here with my paintbrush, and I'm just going to do a little smile on both sides. Next, to finish out the face, I'm just going to add a few little eyelashes right on the side on both of them. For the ears, I'm just going to take some brown craft foam and some white craft foam, and I'm going to freehand some ears. So you're just kind of cutting it into a leaf shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of get a nice big leaf shape right there, and then you're going to do the same thing with the white for the insert, and you're going to make it a leaf shape as well, but a little bit smaller than the one you just cut. And then we're going to layer these together. We're going to take a punch and we're going to punch a hole on both sides, and that's how mine end up looking. And then I got these little branches out of my yard, and I'm going to use those for antlers, and I'm going to paint those with just a regular brown acrylic paint. And you can use any kind of stick that you want to, or anything that you want to. You could use greenery if you wanted to use greenery for the antlers, but just kind of get something that does stick up there. Those are dried. I'm just going to stick these right down inside of my pumpkin. I'm not going to glue these in because they did stay pretty tight. But when you drill your hole or cut your hole in there, you need to just make sure that it is the same size as your stick because you want them just to stay balanced in there. Okay, next for my ears, I'm just going to glue these two together. Just put the white one on top of the brown one. And I'm just mounting them on both sides of right below the little antlers. And then just hold it there until that dries. And then put the other one on the opposite side to match it. All right, I think this turned out super cute. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, I hope this gave you some inspiration. If you like these kind of videos, be sure and give me a like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified when I have a new video upload. Thank y'all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And if nobody's told you today, you're awesome. See you next time. Thanks for watching.